Hello, everyone. Today's Dharma talk is titled The F Word. Um, Faith and Doubt in Buddhist Practice. Let's see if I can find what I did with it. So today I want to talk about a characteristic, a quality, a trait, something we're all going to need to cultivate for what our world is in need of. In the coming days and months, our society is going to be going through some profound transitional phases, transformational and disruptive changes. And we're going to want to cultivate a faithfulness to that which we aspire to awakening and to the relieving of suffering of other people. To accomplish this, we're going to need faith. And how many of us have a negative connotation to certain words, especially those in a religious or from a religious context. And what the hell does faith have to do with Buddhism anyway? I know a few of you may be saying, I'm out of here. For those that were thus triggered, I ask for your patience and ask you to come along with us today, because I am guessing that what you are thinking I am saying and what I am saying is different. So give me a chance. At the heart of faith is trust, confidence in something. It comes from an old Latin word, which is fides, which is also the root of the word fidelity. It is a quality of faithfulness, of deep commitment to a cause or a way of life. End stop. There is nothing religiously inherent, at least big R, religion inherent, that we may have presupposed. Many of us have had faith in the idea of God or gods in our country, in our people, even in ourselves, until we became disappointed, jaded, and started second-guessing everything, especially ourselves. Some have a hard time with just the word faith, not necessarily with the meaning I'm talking about here, but with the baggage we carry of all its connotations and the negative experiences we've had with the word, which then leads us to a rather skewed definition of the word itself, especially those of us who are more of a secular bent. I know for me, in the previous tradition, it brought up questions of being good enough and having enough faith and the shame I felt when I didn't. My lack of faith, there was something inherently wrong with me. I felt quite often that because of this, I was somehow broken. I've come to realize that there are two kinds of faith for me, and it's important in the Buddhist context. There is an unnamable faith, a faith in that which is born of experience of the unnamable, like the Tao. Not blind belief, but a trust and a confidence in something that comes from beyond our capacity to know or reason. And there's relative faith, faith in objects, concepts, or ideas. That is what I had before. This can also be faith in something inherently changing, like other people. This kind of faith needs doubt to help it thrive. I did not understand this at the time. This was the faith I was struggling with, faith that did not allow doubt. And without knowing, we struggle. And we can feel this endless battle between dispelling doubt and making it go away. Why do we want to make doubt go away? Faith and doubt are actually interwoven in an important dance of discovery. And this is the context of faith in the Buddha Dharma teachings. For those that still may be stuck on the word faith, let's look at it for what it means from a Buddhist perspective. Now, as we do this, it's important that with the practice of Buddhists all over the world, there are those that practice a more traditional form of faith. In their traditional faith, they put absolute trust in Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas. Some of them may even see them as literal beings working for their awakening. If that is your practice, you are welcome here in our fellowship. And for those that do not practice Buddhism in a traditional way, but more as a way of life, you too are welcome. Because here it's not about what you believe. Ultimately, that's none of our business. But what we do here is we share our practice, our insight, and strengthen one another in our commitment to the Buddha way. And our desire to cultivate faithfulness to the teachings and one another is at the core of faith in Buddhism. So what does it mean? It means being open, even when what you learn makes you uncomfortable, especially what we learn about ourselves. And in today's current environment, could there be anything more important than to learn our complicity in global warming, in racial and social injustice? Learning about our own complicity is hard, but having faith, we have the groundedness to look with our eyes wide open. We know that at the heart of everything is change. We want to believe in our change and our ability to change. And that we have faith in ourselves that they too can change. I greatly appreciate this from Sharon Salzberg. Quote, "It is important to know that the word we normally translate as faith from the Pali language of the original Buddhist text is saddha, which literally means to place the heart upon. Saddha means to give our hearts over to, or place our hearts upon something." End quote. I love that. Stephen Batchelor, a well-known contemporary author of Buddhism and the author of books such as Buddhism Without Beliefs and the Confession of a Buddhist Atheist, also teaches about faith from a Buddhist perspective. He says, quote, "Faith is about living in an open-hearted and courageous way and not a closed-up, self-protecting way. Faith helps us overcome our fear of pain, grief, and disappointment, and stay open to new experience and understanding." End quote. This is very different than from what we see in circles of our society, secular and religious, where there's this kind of faith free of doubt and frozen in certainty. Such faith, such blind allegiance is as a head filled with certainty. A mind like that is a closed mind. Again, the faith we're talking about here is both unnamable faith and relative faith, but that does not dispel doubt, but walks with doubt as a companion. Let's go on. Alan Watts has said that we need to make a clear distinction between belief and faith, because in general practice, belief has come to connotate a state of mind in which it is actually the opposite of faith. This is what we are seeing a lot of these days. Quote, belief, as I use the word here, is the insistence that the truth is what one believes or wishes it was. The believer will open his mind to truth on the condition that it fits with the preconceived ideas and wishes, end quote. And here's his straightforward definition of faith. Quote, faith, on the other hand, is an unreserved opening of the mind to the truth, whatever it may turn out to be, end quote. Is that not something we are in desperate need of right now as individuals and as communities? This opening of minds and hearts. We suffer too often from the trap of a certain rightness. And this rightness that we get attached to and get tangled in is not freedom, but its own kind of suffering. The great Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron has written, quote, we can't let the circumstances of our lives harden us so that we become increasingly resentful and afraid. Or we can let them soften us and make us kinder and more open to what scares us. We always have this choice. Faith is being open to what scares us, end quote. Faith is being open to what scares us. Faith in Buddhism, saddha, refers to a serene commitment in the practice of the Buddha, of the Buddhist teachings, and trust in an enlightened being possible, allowing us to awaken like a Buddha, to be a Buddha. But it is a combination of faith and reason and doubt that makes that possible. This is a faith born both from experience and not simply believing. The Buddha himself taught in the Pali Canon, O monks and wise men, just as a goldsmith would test his gold by burning, cutting, and rubbing it, you so must examine my words and accept them, not merely out of reverence for me, the Buddha. So the species of faith that I am talking about comes out of, is born from great doubt, which also feeds our faith. Our experience and openness helps us to develop a greater confidence in the teachings and our ability to integrate them into our everyday lives. This sounds very different from what we may have experienced in our old traditions, where the two were seen as mutually exclusive, as if doubt was a great sin. Again, here is our teaching of the I don't know mind, which is a theme we have in our fellowship. Depending on where we come from or our experience, we can have just a fraught relationship with the word doubt. At the heart of the Buddhist teachings is great faith and great doubt, dancing together, bringing us to awakening. Why is this so? Because if you have faith without doubt, you are liable to become trapped in closed belief systems. If you have doubt without faith, you then risk slipping into a kind of nihilistic skepticism. It is possible even to get trapped in Buddhist ideas and concepts. The right and uncritical acceptance of dogma is not what Buddhism is about. The Vietnamese teacher Thich Nhat Hanh has said, quote, "Do not be adulterous about or bound to any doctrine, theory, or ideology, even Buddhist ones. Buddhist systems of thoughts are guiding means. They are not absolute truth," end quote. For me, faith is our learning to dance with the two, faith and doubt. That is my personal opinion. Not all Buddhists share this view, but is certainly the way in some Zen traditions it is seen, an approach that I find very amenable for our fellowship. Sensei Seven Ross of the Chicago Zen Center explains how faith and doubt work together in the Dharma talk he gave called The Distance Between Faith and Doubt. Quote, "Great faith and great doubt are two ends of the spiritual walking stick. With one end we grasp, given to us by our great determination. We poke into the underbrush in the dark as part of our spiritual journey. This act is real spiritual practice, gripping the faith end and poking ahead with the doubt end of the stick. If we have no faith, we have no doubt. If we have no determination, we never pick up the stick in the first place," end quote. Faith in the Buddha Dharma sense is the acceptance of no dogma. Stephen Batchelor's gone on to write, quote, "I think the dogmatic approach to religion, the one that demands unquestioning loyalty to an absolute belief system, is a faithless one. This approach causes people to cling to dogmas rather than follow a path. When taken to extremes, the dogmatist can be lost within the fantasy edifice of fanaticism," end quote. And this is not just religion. I have seen this same fantasy edifice in some progressive leaning advocacy groups. It is easy for us to get trapped into the rightness of what we think we know. Even in our deepest convictions, we want to encourage and have faith in doubt, to dance with our doubt. I think this is where the great comes from. It comes from the courage that it takes to doubt, not out of cynicism or out of a way to rationalize a way doing something, but from our aspiration to awaken, to wake up, to respond to life completely embodied, Unnamable Faith. Which takes us back to speaking of religion as faith. In my experience, Buddhists rarely speak of Buddhism as a faith. Instead, it's a practice. Faith is part of the practice, but so is doubt. Maybe we can really confuse people if they say, "Oh, what faith do you practice?" "Oh, I don't practice a faith, I practice a doubt." It's called Buddhism. Faith in the Buddha Dharma is born out of the I don't know mind, not certainty. It is born of doubt and finding that state of mind as grounding. I don't know mind is a way for us to ground ourselves in the practice. It is in Namo Amida Butsu and our courage to come as we are and to invite others to do the same. It is found in the courage to say to all of our life, "Come as it is." Faith in Buddhism doesn't mean that we have to stay on the ground. It is also as much about the heart as we learn from the Pali word sada. There is still room for those of us who are more poetic and devotional. We can entrust ourselves to the oneness of life. We can evoke the highest ideals of bodhisattvas through chanting and invocation in our daily lives. These divine figures, these divine ideals in the sutras is what is called in Buddhism upaya, or skillful means to guide us as we leap into the dark. As Rumi has written, quote, sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. Take one leap after another in the darkness until the light shines. End quote. Both of these are faith. Now, I want to conclude with a final few thoughts. Sister Aya Kema, and she's a nun in the Theravada tradition, she has taught, quote, faith as a quality in the heart has such a great value because it is connected with the heart. We can only have faith in something we or someone we love. Faith is also connected to devotion, which is a giving of oneself and a lessening of pride. These are valuable and necessary spiritual qualities. If we are devoted to a high ideal, the devotion we can have for that ideal is manifested in giving our love and admiration, respect and gratitude, which are very important qualities to develop. End quote. I honestly believe that these qualities are what is needed right now. For all the things we are facing, all the challenges that we are giving voice to right now in our world and in our country. When the fires of rage eventually are spent, we will need a fierce love to fuel change. The most important thing I want you to take from this talk, something that you can start applying to your everyday lives, is that faith is the courage to open your heart. It is about openness and radiance. When we think of faith, we think we can see it as a complex of different functions rather than being a single state you either have or don't have. We can also see that faith is actually a practice, that we can cultivate it, a boundless faith. We can cultivate a boundless faith one step at a time. We can develop that in ourselves and in others, in our ability to make ourselves free, and a deep and penetrating doubt which asks us, what am I? What is life? What is truth? What is reality? The practice of I don't know mind. Faith has a quality of allowing us to open, to draw near, and to go forth, to harness our energy and to pursue our goals and aspirations. As Alan Watts so succinctly put faith, to have faith is to trust ourselves to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. End quote. And I would like to close the words with the words of Rilke, the poet, that we may cultivate the kind of open-hearted faith that he voices in these lines. Quote, we have no reason to mistrust the world, for it is not against us. Has its terrors, they are our terrors. Has its abysses, these abysses belong to us. If there are dangers at hand, we must try to love them. We must hold to the difficult. Then that which now still seems to us most alien will become what we most trust and find most faithful. Perhaps everything terrible in its deepest being is something helpless that wants help from us. Namo Amida Butsu.